Hello and welcome to AIM Science, brought to you by Deborah Bell's AIM Academy. Each week, I will be here to do a couple fun science experiments. After watching the experiments or projects, I strongly encourage you to try them out for yourself. After all, there is no better way to learn science than to do science. So today, we are going to do some fun experiments mixing baking soda and vinegar. These are pretty classic science experiments and a lot of fun to do. So what is vinegar? Vinegar is a non-toxic chemical. Vinegar is about 95% water and has a little salt in it, and it's about 5% acetic acid. Now you hear that word acid at the end, that means, no big surprise, it's an acid. Baking soda is also a non-toxic chemical that forms from the reaction of carbon dioxide, water, salt, and ammonia. Baking soda is called sodium bicarbonate, and it is a base. You may have heard the term base. In chemistry, base is basically the opposite of an acid. So when we have an acid and we have a base and they meet one another, they cancel one another out. We say that they neutralize one another. Fun things happen when you do this reaction, when you mix baking soda and vinegar. So let's start with a classic experiment that shows us what happens when we mix baking soda and vinegar. So I'm going to start. I have here a flask. This is called an Erlenmeyer flask. It's a piece of science equipment. It's good to learn the names of these things, but it's also easy to do this experiment with just a cup. You can either use like a water bottle or just a plain cup. So let's start out by pouring some baking soda into a funnel, or into the funnel, and then into my flask. So I've got here a funnel, and I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of baking soda down in the bottom. Doesn't really matter how much you use. It really depends on the size of your container. So if you're using a really small container, you're going to want to use less baking soda. If you're using a big one, you're going to want to use more. So now I'm going to do about 1/2 cup of vinegar. And this is just plain white vinegar like you buy in any grocery store. Now what's going to happen? You'll notice that I have this experiment set up on a tray. There's a reason for that. This experiment can get pretty messy, but it's also a whole lot of fun. Now I'm going to take some food coloring and put a drop down in there just to add a little interest. So I'm putting just a few, 4 or 5 drops in my vinegar. So you can see that it turned red. All right, are we ready? Watch what happens. Whoa. Quite a reaction. A little bit of an explosion, you might say. All right, so let's talk about why that works. When we have, so if we think about everything in the universe is made up of atoms. Atoms are the smallest particles that we can break everything down to. Vinegar and baking soda are no different. So vinegar is made up of a combination of atoms, hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. Baking soda is also made of hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon, but there's a little sodium in the baking soda. So when we mix baking soda and vinegar, a reaction occurs. Actually, it's 2 reactions that take place one after the other. So in the first reaction, all those atoms that were arranged in a certain way, they rearrange in a new way to form 2 new chemicals. Those new chemicals are called sodium acetate and carbonic acid. But, and here's why we get all the foam. Carbonic acid is a very fragile chemical. It falls apart very easily. And that's what we call a decomposition reaction. It decomposes and it breaks down quickly. And in that reaction, carbon dioxide is formed. So carbon dioxide comes up in the bubbles, and that's what you saw there. It escapes, and that gives us that fun fizzing effect. So when the carbon dioxide escapes, the mixture bubbles up over, and all we have left in this flask is a little bit of water, a little bit of food coloring, and a little bit of the salt that was made when we did it. So there's also some more fun things we can do. We just did this showing it without any, just in the flask. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoot this flask aside, and we're going to do the exact same experiment, only we're going to turn it into a volcano. So this is really easy to do with some foil. This is kind of already the right shape, but if you have a glass, you can just wrap it around the glass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this and flare this out at the bottom so it looks like I have a volcano. Now, if you really want to have some fun, you can color this. You can draw in some grass or some rocks along the side. And then we're going to start again with our 2 tablespoons of baking soda that I'm going to put down into the flask so that I have the baking soda to start the project. And then I'm going to pour in my 1/2 cup of baking soda. But this time, just to make it a little bit of fun, I have some glitter in this bottle. So let's add a little glitter to the water and see what happens when we pour the glitter water, the glitter vinegar down in. Let's make it a little bit more interesting still by putting in a few drops of green food coloring. All right, I'm going to stir that a little bit. Look at that nice bright food coloring. Okay, are you ready? Here goes. Let's watch our volcano. All right, what happened here? Oh, it's coming. Here it comes. Just taking a little bit longer than the other one. And I'm not sure why. All right, let's stop and think about this for a minute. I'm going to show you it is coming up, but why is it taking so much longer? Well, it could be that I had a little something down in the bottom of my beaker, down in the bottom of my flask. There we go. The volcano is erupting. Ooh, that's a slow volcano, isn't it? I always tell students, sometimes we learn as much from experiments that don't work the way we think they're going to as we do ones that work perfectly. But this is definitely working. We're definitely getting this fizzing and foaming, and I think that the addition of the glitter slowed this reaction down. It thickened, and there was also a little bit of glue in my glitter. So that slowed the reaction down, actually made it more like a real volcano, didn't it? So that would be fun things to try. What can you add to your baking soda and your vinegar? Maybe some things will speed the reaction up. Maybe some things will slow it down. Just be careful to be sure that you're always adding safe things and always have a grown-up with you to approve the things that you're going to put in there. Okay, so now we're going to do something even more fun than a volcano, if that's possible. I'm going to move my volcano aside, and we are going to use baking soda and vinegar. Notice I have some paper towels handy too. That's important because, like I said, this is a messy project. So we're going to use some baking soda and vinegar to blow up a balloon. Are you ready for this? All right. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to get my flask again, and I'm going to have a balloon handy, and I'm going to use my funnel to put, again, about 2 tablespoons of baking soda down in the balloon. You see, I can't really get it in that skinny mouth of the balloon, so I'm going to use the funnel to shake it down in there. And about 2 tablespoons is probably a little more than I need for this project, so I think I'll put 1.5. All right? And I shake that down in there so that I get all the baking soda down inside the balloon. Yep, and now the funnel's empty. So now I'm going to put some vinegar in my flask. Kind of getting messy here on my table, isn't it? I love how messy science is. All right, we're putting about 1/2 cup in. And then I stretch the balloon up over the mouth of the flask. Are you ready? I'm going to tip this over, and it's going to dump the baking soda down into the vinegar, and watch what happens. Whoa, I'm blowing up the balloon. Now, if I had even more baking soda and vinegar, this balloon could pop. And if it popped, it would throw baking soda and vinegar all over because there actually is baking soda and vinegar up inside there. Would you guys like to see that again? I have a couple of them set up here. So let me set this one aside, and I'll pull one over. Here's one right here. I already have this pre-measured. So ready? We're going to tip this one up and watch what happens. Whoa, look at that balloon. Think of all the things that you could blow up with baking soda and vinegar. You could use a plastic bag. You can maybe use a rubber glove. You can think of any other things. So one of the fun things about science is always asking yourself, what if? What would happen if I put a plastic bag on here? What would happen if I used more baking soda or more vinegar? Would it matter if I put baking soda into vinegar or vinegar into baking soda? Those are all good questions. Okay, that's all we have for today. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I'm here on AIM Academy's Facebook page every Monday at 2. I also teach online homeschool classes at AIM Academy, and I'll be teaching 3 classes starting in January. Those classes are The Wonders of Water, Sensational Senses, and Zoology. And those classes are for students in grades 4 to 8, depending on the class. For more information, you can go to AIM Academy courses on deborahbell.com. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope it is filled with science. Have a great day.